The story begins with our protagonist's mother doing her daily work of delivering feed to the neighboring farms from the store. After Young Soon returns to the establishment, she is surprised when her boyfriend proposes to her, using a piglet with a ribbon for the occasion. The man is a pig farmer and, since she loves him very much, of course, she accepts. Now we will take a small leap in time. The couple is living happily on the farm, and Young Soon is pregnant with their first child. Her husband is very happy with this news and makes sure to tell everyone who visits that he is about to become a father. He has also prepared a notebook that functions as a savings account so that their child will have some money saved for when they grow up. Now focusing on farm matters, Hae-sik is having problems with a sow that is very stressed because she is at the end of her pregnancy. Thus, his wife suggests moving her to another barn, so the rest of the animals won't become agitated. Later that same day, the couple receives some exciting news. The Olympic torch will pass along the road right in front of the farm. However, in the coming days, this news proves to be the beginning of a very difficult path in their lives. Soon after, a man named Woo Byok contacts Hae-sik wanting to demolish his farm because, in this person's mind, the place is not something that will be well regarded by the rest of the world when the Olympics are televised, as it's noticeable that it isn't a place of luxury and also has a pig farm, which is seen as dirty and smelly. Of course, Hae-sik refuses the proposal. He is proud of his work and intends to leave the farm to his son in the future. But that night, in response to his decision, the area where the animals were housed is set on fire. Although Hae-sik doesn't know who it was, neighbors soon appear giving descriptions of the men seen on the property, and now, an investigation has been opened against Woo Byok. The only surviving sow was the one that was relocated to another barn. As the days go by and the investigation starts gaining traction, witnesses from that night completely change their testimonies, and this is the moment when Hae-sik realizes that the Yongra Construction Company's money has bought everyone around him. Thus, the man begins his own investigation, and as soon as Woo Byok is cleared of the charges, Hae-sik schedules interviews with journalists to share everything he knows. But first, Hae-sik meets with the prosecutor handling the case to make him aware that he knows he's not dealing with good people. Hae-sik also leaves Tae-soo the notebook containing the savings for his son, so if anything happens to him, Tae-soo can help his wife. In this way, when Hae-sik leaves the prosecutor's office, we see that Tae-soo has also been bought by the construction company's money, and after he warns Woo Byok that they might have problems, Hae-sik, who is on his way home, is cornered. Woo Byok makes it look like Hae-sik decided to take his own life, and knowing her husband, Young Soon obviously doesn't accept his death. However, there was nothing more that could be done about it, as her visit to the prosecutor also brought no answers, but at least the woman managed to recover the money saved for her son. In fact, she was surprised to receive the notebook, as she did not expect it. So, Young Soon made a decision and, after buying a farm in a village, the woman moved there pregnant, along with the sow that was almost ready to give birth. Regarding the village, the neighbors were very united, and taking that into consideration, when they discovered there would be a pig farm, they all gathered to expel the new family because there was that old prejudice against the animal. However, when they encountered a single mother who was pregnant, despite a brief confrontation, they all ended up accepting Young Soon in the village. After all, that same day, she went into labor, and it was these strangers who helped her at that moment. A child had been born a few days ago and was named Sam-sik, but focusing on another neighbor who was as far along in her pregnancy as Young Soon, she gave birth in the new woman's house shortly after Kang-ho, our protagonist, was born. Everyone expected Mi-ju, Sam-sik, and Kang-ho to be great friends, but only the girl got along with the boys, because Sam-sik, from a very young age, bothered Kang-ho, saying the boy didn't have a father and was as dirty as a pig. Although he was not at fault for retaliating upon hearing these words, the protagonist's mother always reprimanded him with a stick and raised him very strictly, demanding that he study many hours a day and not even letting him eat until he was full, as Young Soo said that it would make him sleepy and prevent him from having quality study time. Mi-ju had been in love with Kang-ho since she was young, and sharing this feeling for her was Sam-sik, which also explains the jealousy the boy felt towards the protagonist. Returning to the way Young-soo raised him, she thought that acting this way would make Kang-ho a successful man, and in the future, he could become a prosecutor to prevent others from going through what the boy's father did. Meanwhile, Mi-ju also had to deal with issues from a young age, as she saw her mother suffering at the hands of her father with the marks he left on her body, and later, the girls celebrated when the man abandoned the family, at least so they wouldn't have that kind of problem anymore. Moving to the day of Kang-ho's first national exam, we see that Mi-ju was there to encourage her boyfriend, and she even painted one of his nails yellow for luck. However, right after passing through the gates, the boy returned to Mi-ju upon seeing that a motorcycle had hit her, resulting in the protagonist going to the hospital with her and skipping the test that year. As soon as Mi-ju woke up, she cried, realizing that Kang-ho missed the exam because of her, despite the protagonist trying to console her by saying he would take it next year. And that night, his mother reprimanded him in a very sad manner. Despite having waited his whole life for the moment of the exam and the result with his acceptance to pursue a career as a prosecutor, Young-soo even insulted Mi-ju for having an accident today, and at that moment, Kang-ho rebelled against the woman for the first time, saying he would then do what she always wanted, which is the opposite of what the boy desires. Kang-ho promises that he will become a prosecutor, but with that, he will never return to stay with her and will follow the path of those who did that to his father. In a leap through time, we see that our protagonist truly became a very respected prosecutor. However, after a hearing, a woman whose husband was convicted approaches him and gives him evidence incriminating the Woo Byok construction company, which is putting the blame on her husband instead of taking responsibility. This construction company is managed by the same person who took Kang-ho's father's life, and instead of taking the evidence to the judge, the protagonist calls Woo Byok to warn him that they have problems. Seeing the relationship between the two, it seems that Woo Byok does not know who Kang-ho's father is, and taking advantage of this, the man gets closer to him with the aim of having Woo Byok adopt him as a son. Meanwhile, Young-soon continues living in the village, and her pig farm is growing more and more. The woman hasn't been in contact with her son since he moved away, and even on his birthday, Kang-ho refuses to see her. In the next scene, we see Mi-ju. She already has 2 children who are under her mother's care and is about to open a beauty salon with a friend. As she always liked painting nails, Mi-ju pursued this profession, but her mother urges her every day to find the children's father and to ensure the village doesn't learn about the girl's current situation. Everyone compares their children and believes Mi-ju is in another country and not divorced, which is the reality. Meanwhile, Sam-sik continued getting into trouble as an adult and was arrested for being caught stealing. Back to the protagonist, shortly after graduating, he attended lectures by the prosecutor who handled Kang-ho's father's case, and during one of their meetings, the protagonist discovered who the man's daughter was. Once again, Kang-ho ended up responding to a complaint indicating that the woman was using illicit substances at a nightclub. After apprehending and searching her, he only found a medication without a prescription for panic syndrome, but nonetheless, Ha-young asked him not to put it on her record to avoid harming her father, who was running for president. However, the encounters between the two didn't stop there, as Kang-ho sought her out again to deliver some things, and now Ha-young began to feel an interest in him. In the next scene, it is shown that Ha-young went so far as to introduce the protagonist as her boyfriend to her father, but as soon as Tae-soo was alone with Kang-ho, he demanded that the boy break up with her. To prevent this, Kang-ho found a scandal involving Tae-soo and took it to Woo Byok, who, of course, was very interested in the weapon in his hands. In exchange for what he received, Tae-soo asked Woo Byok to adopt him and transfer all his businesses to him upon his death. Kang-ho would also marry Tae-soo's daughter, thus preventing them from attacking each other, and having someone in the presidency on his side would greatly ease Woo Byok's life. So the man agreed to this path, and to ensure his secret wouldn't be used against him in the future, Tae-soo insisted that Kang-ho get rid of the woman carrying the future president's illegitimate child. Now that everything is resolved, we see that in the village, Young-soon is excited to finally have her son back home with his fiancée. Of course, the neighbors were also eager to meet her, as the woman's father would likely be the president. But soon after the celebration, when they saw Kang-ho, it was interrupted because the man asked to speak privately with his mother. The protagonist only went there with one objective: to ask Young-soon to sign the papers so that Woo Byok could now become his father, and even though she didn't want this, Young-soon tried to follow her son's wishes. After getting what he wanted, he left, making it clear he had no reason to stay or eat what was prepared since, in all the years they lived together, his mother never sat down to share a meal with him. The neighbors ended up hearing the argument and, of course, felt sorry for Young-soon, who, despite being very strict, did everything she could to ensure Kang-ho's success. Despite everything, the situation isn't peaceful for the protagonist, who had to stop the car and switch places with his fiancée to continue the journey. And now, things get even worse, as Kang-ho fell asleep in the passenger seat, and Ha-young had to get out of the vehicle to retrieve her scarf that had blown away. At that moment, a truck appeared at high speed and knocked the car down a ravine, leaving Ha-young desperate. Kang-ho was taken to a different hospital from the woman, and as soon as his mother was notified of the incident, Young-soon rushed to be by his side. The protagonist is still alive, but due to the swelling in his brain, he is in a coma and at great risk of having aftereffects when he wakes up. Even so, Kang-ho's mother doesn't lose hope that her son will return to who he once was. As for his fiancée, Young-soon was unable to contact her as the number seems non-existent, and moving on to the woman, we see that the accident was something orchestrated by her along with her father. Ha-young's only concern is that the protagonist survived and that Woo Byok discovers the truth and seeks revenge, but to prevent this from happening, Tae-soo ensured that no evidence links them to the truck driver. In any case, Woo Byok has been suspicious of Tae-soo from the start and even visited the protagonist in the hospital, but the truck was stolen, and later the driver took his own life. Regarding Young-soon's farm, as she chose to stay by her son's side, her neighbors and a new employee named Andrea took care of the place. Meanwhile, Sam-sik is out of prison and visiting Mi-ju, and we see he still likes her. Now a few months have passed, and finally, our protagonist opened his eyes. Even after coming out of the coma, Kang-ho returned with the mentality of a 7-year-old boy and can only move his head, so Young-soon decided to bring him to her house and raise him again. After much work over the months and crying alone so her son wouldn't see, Kang-ho managed to move his hands again, not perfectly, but it's a significant progress. And finally, Young-soon secured a spot in a clinic for him to undergo physiotherapy along with other necessary treatments. Meanwhile, Mi-ju found success with her salon, but her friend, who was her partner, ran away with all the profits, leaving many people in the neighborhood angry, including our beloved Mi-ju. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me out. See you next time.